So, episode 8 already. Welcome to Norris Lee TV. Now, coming up on tonight's show, we meet CST anti-Semitism specialist, Dr. Dave Rich. We continue with the annexation debate with Ohad Zemet, the spokesperson of the Israeli embassy, and we'll meet our youngest interviewee yet, Becca Grossman.
That's right. So we're going to begin straight with Dr. David Rich. He's the British head of policy at Community Security Trust, CST, and an associate at the Pearce Institute for the Study of Anti-Semitism at Birkbeck, University of London. He's the author of The Left's Jewish Problem, Jeremy Corbyn, Israel and Anti-Semitism. Over to you, Rabbi Daniel Friedman.
Shalom, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us today on Norris Lee TV. It's such a privilege to have you here. You're the anti-Semitism expert of this country, and there are really so many disturbing events happening at the moment, not least of which was the conviction of these national action individuals for their work, the neo-Nazi activity. Can you tell us a little about who these people are, how many of these people there are in the country, how many neo-Nazi groups are active, and what we should be aware
of? Firstly, hello, Rabbi, and thank you for inviting me on. Unfortunately, neo-Nazis don't go away, and the far-right scene in this country has definitely grown in recent years for a number of reasons. A lot of people, when they think of the far right, they think of maybe the British National Party, or for older viewers, the National Front, who would stand in elections and get a few hundred votes and maybe get the odd local councillor elected. That's not really how the far right directs its efforts and its energies nowadays. The far right in Britain that we have is kind of divided between, on the one hand, street movements, people who like to go out and demonstrate and shout racist slogans. We're seeing a growth of that at the moment in reaction to some of the Black Lives Matter protests. This part of the far right is very Islamophobic, very anti-immigration, and they kind of fit that model of kind of street thugs, street movements. National Action, the group you mentioned, is more extreme than that. They are, or they were before they were banned, a bona fide terrorist organization. You're talking small numbers of people who gather largely online in kind of hidden corners of the internet, where they share their propaganda, they plot activities which can be anything from stickering racist or anti-Semitic stickers in the middle of the night, all the way up to potential terrorist attacks. National Action was the first far-right organization in this country to be banned by the government as a terrorist organization. That happened in December 2016, after they'd been around for 2 or 3 years. Because what happens when you ban an organization is the activists, they don't all disappear, they go off, they create new names, they try and reform. It becomes harder for them, and the police have more powers. And what we've seen this week with the court case is 4 members of National Action who have been put in prison simply for being members of the group. And that's one of the powers that prescription gives to the police. But there's absolutely no doubt, if we look over the last decade or so, far-right terrorism in particular is a growing problem in this country and around the world. We saw tragically attacks on synagogues in Pittsburgh and in San Diego, and in 2018 and 19, and in Halle in Germany, where people were murdered, Jews at prayer. And this is a growing problem around the world now, and it's increasingly a focus of CST's work, and I have to say of the police's work as well.
Well, thank you for monitoring and being on top of all that, because it is really scary. I mean, what do you attribute it to? Is it social media? Where are these people coming from?
It's a combination of factors. Obviously, Nazi ideology has been around for many decades, and every generation we think we've defeated it. But then at times of extreme social and economic problems, all kind of extremist ideologies will gain new supporters, and especially at times when issues of national identity and immigration are very much part of public debate, but in a divisive way. We've seen a rise of kind of radical right-wing movements in many countries around the world, especially in Europe, and a rise of that kind of politics in North America as well. What the internet does, it allows these people to connect with each other. So one person sitting at home in their bedroom on their computer, whereas 20 years ago, they would have had to find like-minded people in their town and find the dodgy pub where they all go to drink and get accepted by those people. Nowadays, they can find lots and lots of people who are of similar attitudes, similar prejudices, without leaving their home. And they can connect with each other. They can create these online communities and online networks, and they can encourage each other to go out and commit violent acts. And the internet has really become an essential part of how this movement operates now.
My goodness. I mean, what motivates them? I mean, are they really out for blood, or are they just stupid kids? I mean, what do they ultimately hope to achieve?
A lot of the people we see joining any extremist movement, and the far right is no different, have quite often have problems in their own personal lives. Do not come from particularly stable backgrounds. This isn't making excuses for them. It's just there can be lots and lots of factors and triggers that lead people to seek extreme solutions or seek role models and communities to belong in that they're not getting at home or in their immediate environment. The rise of conspiracy theories is a really important part of this, and any extremist belief will be wrapped up in a conspiracy theory about who really runs things in our country, who really holds power. And quite often the answer to this in one form or another is, well, it's the Jews or the Zionists, or it's specific individual Jewish people like the Rothschilds or George Soros or so on. These conspiracy theories are incredibly common nowadays, especially online. And this is the beginning of a funnel that people go through in terms of their belief system, where they reach a point where their worldview is entirely wrapped up in this kind of idea that there is a really evil power that is to blame for whatever they are unhappy about in their personal lives or in wider society. And that then takes them down the next step of, well, what are you going to do about it? And for a very small minority of this minority of people, the answer will be, we're going to go out and attack them. And we have to always remember in these extremist movements, a lot of violent language circulates. It's always a small number of people who follow these movements who then go out and act on it. And that again can be a very individual, personal reasons why people take that extra step. So it's a combination of ideology, of peer pressure, of group belonging, and of personal motivations and personal triggers.
Oh, goodness. I mean, they're a secret group, though. How do people find them? Do these young people realize that they're engaged in criminal, national action, terrorist activity, which could land them in jail?
Very much so, and a large part of the motivation, I think, is the sense of transgressing social norms, breaking these taboos, wanting to rebel against the whole of society. These are revolutionary ideologies. One of the better known supporters of national action was a person called Jack Renshaw, who last year was put in prison for plotting to murder his local MP and a senior police officer who was leading the investigation against him. These are symbols of order in society and symbols of the way society is structured. So it's not just about attacking Jews or other minorities. The one thing I'd say is, in terms of whether these are secret groups and how people join them, I really wish it was all secret. But actually, on the internet, online, it is very easy to find these people. It's very easy to connect with them. It's very easy to find really extreme, violent, racist, far-right incitement. All you need to do is go to the right social media platforms, create an account, and it's there. It's very, very easy to find.
That's scary indeed. And again, once again, thank you for being on top of it. And I know how much CST liaises with the police, and the police consider CST such a vital resource for this country, and CST is a model for countries and communities across the globe for the work that you're doing. Let's shift gears for a moment. You have been the country's expert scholar for a number of years on Corbyn and Corbynism and the rise of Jeremy Corbyn. And I think we all breathed a sigh of relief when the 12th of December 2019 came along, and what could have been a disaster didn't happen. But he hasn't disappeared, and certainly his cronies haven't disappeared. They've lost the election. Have we seen the last of them, or are they just strategizing, preparing their next move?
It's strange how quickly things can change. Last year, and for a few years, so much of our concern, not just the CST, but across so much of the community, was about anti-Semitism within the Labour Party and about the potential challenges and threats that this posed to the Jewish community. And I mean, you're right in saying it. In some ways, that feels like a long time ago now. We feel like we're in such a different world. And yet, of course, people don't just go away. The leadership of the party has changed, and has changed really significantly. You have a completely different attitude at the top of the party. But of course, the Labour Party is a very big movement, and up until the end of last year, most of the membership had joined to support Jeremy Corbyn, and were very much from his wing. So I think the leadership of the party has made a really good start in terms of reaching out to the Jewish community. That we've definitely seen signs of an increase in the tempo of suspending and expelling people for anti-Semitism. So the first steps have been really encouraging. I think they do understand that it's going to take a long time to really shift the party from where it was into kind of a more mainstream place, I suppose. Of course, as that happens, as you say, where do these other people go? Where does the far left go? And we've definitely seen people who've been thrown out of the party for anti-Semitism and other reasons coalescing in different places. The former Member of Parliament, Chris Williamson, has a new movement that a lot of these people are joining. They are really trying to stir things up at the moment over the protests regarding racism towards black communities, and comparing that with the kind of attention and, as they see it, privilege that anti-Semitism receives. And I think that's a very divisive and dangerous narrative for anyone to be pushing. But it's something that, again, comes from that far left attitude. These kind of attitudes always existed in our politics, in our society, but they were always on the extremes. And what was so alarming about what happened in the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn is that it came into mainstream politics. And I think the job now is to force them back out to the extremes and keep them there, keep these ideas there where they really belong. And like I say, I think the new leadership have made a good start. But those attitudes, they won't go away. They'll just shift somewhere else.
So, shifting gears once more to really the issue of the day, we have anti-racism protests happening across the globe. And a year ago, the army here prepared a document looking at extreme right-wing indicators and warnings after they found Miko Velivenian recruiting in their midst. How prevalent is racism in the armed forces and amongst the police?
I think both institutions are very aware of this problem. Certainly in all our interactions with the police, they definitely have kind of policies and approaches to diversity and anti-racism and tackling hate crime that are all the things you'd want to see. Now, of course, they're not always implemented in the correct way. There's always going to be problems. There are definitely other minority communities, not so much, I think, the Jewish community, but other minorities of color who have genuine grievances about how they are sometimes treated by the police and some of those interactions. What I would say is that when that happens, that's things going wrong. And that's at least a good start, is that that's not how the police want things to be. Right. And the same goes for the army. But of course, you're always going to get these problems. And the way to get rid of these problems is with strong leadership. So the fact that the army found that recruiting going on and addressed it is good. It's not enough to simply say, well, it's a few bad apples. You always have to be looking at your organizational culture, make sure the leadership is strong, make sure everyone who joins your organization knows this is what we stand for, and this is what we won't stand for. And that's going to be an ongoing job for any institution, I think.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Dave. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for everything you do for our community and for this country. And to the leadership of CST, to Gerald Ronson, and to everybody that's so dedicated to keeping us safe. As I mentioned, we are a model community due to the tireless dedication of yourself and the entire team at CST. Thank you. We owe the world to you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody at Norris Lee for all the support that you give to CST. It's much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Rabbi Friedman and Dr. Rich. This really fascinating things that you just told us. I mean, it's shocking, actually. You know, here during COVID, we're using the internet for such positive things, bringing light, teaching Torah, Norris Lee TV. And yet here, there's so much evil that is being done through this internet. What's going on here?
Well, actually, it reminds me of this time last year. We were in Germany in a place called Schwalmstadt, just an hour north of Frankfurt, which is my grandmother's birthplace. We went to see her childhood home, and we had a meeting with the mayor of the town there, who actually accompanied our family while we found her grandparents' graves, and we prayed there, and we put stones on the gravestone, as is a Jewish tradition. After we prayed there, it was a very special ceremony, special service, and the mayor accompanied us on that. And he spoke afterwards. We gathered in the mayor's chamber room, and he said, your grandmother, she was in this town during Kristallnacht when they were throwing stones through her window. And just now I noticed that in your custom, you put stones on a grave as an everlasting memory. And he picked up a stone and he said, a stone can be used to destroy, and a stone can be used to build. The choice is ours. We have to make the right choices. And it's like you were saying, Rabbi, the internet is exactly that. It can be used for so much good. It's incredible what the internet has achieved. But at the same time, it can be so destructive and so damaging, as sadly we have seen. The Orchos Tzadikim, a favorite Jewish sefer book of mine, it talks about the various character traits every human being has, whether it's laziness, happiness, being a spendthrift, all the character traits, happiness, sadness. He said every single character trait a person's got can be used for good and can be used for bad. And it's our job to use that for good. That's what we're putting this world for. It's, the choice is ours. We have free will, free choice. We have to make those choices. Like anything, fire can give you warmth and light, but of course it can be terribly destructive. A hammer can build, a hammer can destroy. So let's all use this internet, all the tools we've got, for good stuff.
Absolutely. And now we are very blessed to have Adam Taub interview Ohad Zemet, who is the spokesperson for the Embassy of Israel in the UK. Over to you, Adam.
So I'm here with Ohad Zemet. First of all, thank you so much, Ohad, for joining us on a Sunday afternoon and dressing so smartly, I'd like to say. Ohad is representative at the Israel Embassy in London. And the context of this conversation is obviously the concern that people have about what is happening in the state of Israel, what may be about to happen in the state of Israel, whether actions that Israel is going to take may affect or change situation on the ground, and how the Anglo-Jewish community and the diaspora community can relate to this, even if they have difference of opinions and so on. So it's an open conversation. Ohad, would you just, by way of introduction, tell us a little bit about your experience working in the ministry, the foreign ministry?
So, hi, I'm very privileged to be here. I'm the spokesperson of the embassy, so that means I am in charge of all communication with the media, relation with journalists. Since London is such a huge media hub, the government decided Israel needs a full-time diplomat to do it. In my background, I'm a lawyer. I spent 7 years in the legal department of the ministry, dealt with all kinds of issues. Last position, I was handling human rights issues in the legal department. Afterwards, I took the diplomatic course. I joined the diplomatic service. I spent 3 years in Cairo. I was in charge I was the head of political and economic affairs, which means I also dealt with the media, but also with economic affairs. And for me, it was really a privilege because my father fought a war against Egypt, and his son was serving as a diplomat there. And
amazing, absolutely amazing.
Really a feeling of making peace, getting people together, business persons together. So that's amazing.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So let's kick off with the terminology of the debate that seems to be going on at the moment. We've heard, I would say, 3 or 4 terms used at the moment. Israel may be considering annexing the territory, it may be applying sovereignty, it may be applying Israeli law, and these terms are being used interchangeably. Can you just tell us, is there a difference between these terms? And if so, which is the term which is of most relevance to us at the moment?
So first of all, in order to provide a framework to the discussion, so this is not a government policy at all, the issue of applying Israeli sovereignty or applying Israeli law, or whatever people are referring to. So this is not a government policy yet. According to the coalition agreement, and we have, after years of elections, as you know, we have a coalition agreement, a very wide coalition, which makes a lot of people in Israel very happy, specifically government employees, in order to have a stable government. So in the coalition agreement, there is a clause that says that there was, since July, an agreement with the US regarding to the application of Israeli sovereignty over territories could be brought to the government. So we are waiting for this. We're waiting for this to be decided. And when you're talking about the difference, so people needs to know, Israel always stated that, and always stated, I think the position was that Israel has a claim, legal claim, not just historical, not just moral, legal claim over the territories. And so the difference is when you apply your sovereignty, you basically materialize the claim that you already have. And so other terms might refer to different things. So
I understand that, but is annexation specifically different to extending Israeli sovereignty or law?
So this is a legal issue, and I remember last week, I think you had Natasha Hausdorff that quoted from the Oxford Legal Dictionary.
Yes.
So I think that the annexation, according to what she said, was that it's basically taking or annexing territory of another state. But here, because Israel has always stated that we have the legal rights, so we are talking here about applying Israel's sovereignty.
I get it, and I understand. I now understand the difference. Let's come on to the current agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians under the Oslo Accords. Now, under those Oslo Accords, both sides agreed not to change the status of the territories. And in fact, Israel objected strongly when the Palestinians attempted to do so by declaring a Palestinian state, saying it was against the Oslo Accords. Now, would applying Israeli law or sovereignty to parts of the West Bank be regarded as a change of status?
So regarding the Oslo Accords, I remember, I think it was a month ago, that the Palestinian presidents canceled these agreements, I think for the second or third time. I I don't remember. But we are, Rob, we are talking now, and as I said, it's been in discussions with the U.S. and just yesterday it was, or last week, the German Foreign Ministry was in the ministry and met with Foreign Minister Ashkenazi, and we are talking about a peace plan, that Israel was willing to negotiate on the basis, and the foreign minister called for the Palestinians to join and to take part and to enter into discussions. And when we are talking about the Jordan Valley, and I think this is what people are talking about, again, it's not a government policy. You have to remember that Rabin, that signed the peace, signed Oslo, stated in '95, I think, in his last speech in the Knesset, he said that the Jordan Valley will remain under Israeli sovereignty. So we're not talking about something unique.
No, but we are talking about a process of negotiation. And as part of that process, Israel and the Palestinians have said, we will not change the status. So in terms of establishing goodwill between the sides, will this move potentially be seen as changing the status?
Again, we are in discussions with the Americans and with a lot of other actors, and we don't know the outcome yet, and we don't know what's going to be. What we do know is that that we and the Palestinians need to sit together in order to find a solution, in order to live in peace, basically. And when we are not doing this, this is wrong, and this is unfortunate. And just a few months ago, we celebrated 70 years, I think, of Israeli independence, and we haven't celebrated 70 years to Palestinian independence. And the question is why? Why we have to? Why we have we don't have a Palestinian state, and therefore I'm calling, and the Israeli policy has been, since I think 10 years ago, is to sit and to negotiate.
Just so I'm clarifying it, because I'll come on to the point that you've just made. Does Israel regard the Oslo Accords as being in effect now, still, or does it regard the Oslo Accords as no longer applying?
Again, I don't know what's exactly the position currently, but I have to say that we have this agreement. We signed this agreement in '95, and and the Palestinian, as I said, nulled them and said they are being cancelled. And we are, again, what the agreements are saying in the end of the day is to have a framework for negotiations, and this is the way we have to move forward. And the U.S. peace plan is this kind of plan, and we are not saying for the Palestinians it's take it or leave it. No one said it. And also Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, when he was in the podium in the White House, he stated that we are willing to negotiate on the basis of it. So here is a peace plan, and we have to negotiate.
Okay. If Israel does decide at this stage to extend sovereignty to certain parts, let's just talk about what will be the status of Palestinians in those areas. So let's say Area C down the Jordan Valley, which is what's being talked at the moment. Will those Palestinians within that area be entitled to apply for citizenship of Israel? Will their property rights be protected?
So, as I said, all the details of the program is still under discussion, but we can also only look to the past. And in the past, in '67, Israel applied sovereignty to the eastern neighborhoods of Jerusalem. And all the people who lived in those neighborhoods were given the option of having Israeli citizenship. And actually, we see a trend here. We see in recent years of more and more people. And when I was before I came to London, I lived in Jerusalem, and you see more and more people taking Israeli citizenship. More and more people that are.
You mean Palestinians?
Of course. They apply for Israeli citizenship. They want to go to schools that are using the Israeli curriculum, because in the beginning it was a boycott. They didn't want to study the Israeli curriculum, and schools decided to teach the Jordanian and I think the Palestinian. And now people want to take the Israeli program because they want to integrate. And as a government, we encourage this kind of integration of people, because only with integration, only with cooperation, we can build a better future.
Okay, can I ask you this? One of the things that confuses me is, what is the value of extending Israeli sovereignty to these territories? We talk about we're trying to reach some form of deal or understanding, but it seems to me that it could be quite inflammatory from the Palestinians' point of view to take this step. What value does Israel get by taking such a step?
So it's as we said, extending Israeli law, sovereignty. It's not something new. The policy of having Israel in control of the Jordan Valley is being, or having in control in certain parts of the West Bank. This is a policy that is of Labour governments, of Likud governments, and so it's been all through the years. So now we have with this.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, why change things? We could have changed things over 50 years, right? Why are we changing them now? We could negotiate. We're in control of those territories anyway. What benefit do we get by changing the status to extend Israeli law to them?
So, as I said, again, this was Israeli policy, and today we have a unique situation where we have the U.S. peace plan that envisions, they had a conceptual map, and again we are still discussing the details, but it seems this is a unique opportunity from the side of the U.S. of the international community to take this move that it's been a long-standing Israeli policy.
Okay, look, let's then move on to the Trump peace plan. So the Trump peace plan is not simply about Israel annexing certain territories. It's about a comprehensive approach to trying to reach a peace deal. And as part of that, Israel is going to have to negotiate with the Palestinians directly, and also stop building for 4 years in the territories. If Israel decides to do this move of extending Israeli sovereignty to territories in the West Bank, will it do it within the framework of the Trump peace plan and stop building and open negotiations?
So as you know, and everyone reads the Israeli paper knows, we're still in discussion. So people, as I said, it's too much details that people don't know. But you can see that the debate within the Israeli society is intense. You see, there is criticism of this policy from the left, of course, but also from the right. You see people saying that this move or discussion or plan is against the interest or against the right of the Jewish people to live in any part. So we don't know yet what's going to be. So it's very hard to speculate. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. We're in this interim period, and I completely understand that we may not have clarity. So we're trying to sort of give ourselves as much clarity as we can within the limits. I understand. Let's talk about I know you've got a lot of experience in Cairo and so on. Let's talk about what will be the reaction, do you think, of the Arab world if Israel takes this unilateral step?
So relations of Israel with the Arab world has underwent enormous change in recent years. There's a lot of factors, but I think specifically since the so-called Arab Spring, we see more and more people value the relation of Israel. So if in the end people in the past, people saw Israel as an adversary, as a country that is if Israel is winning, so they are losing or something. Is their enemy. They see now that there are many other enemies. They see the rise of extremism, countries becoming destabilizing. We see Syria, we see Lebanon now, we see what happened in Iraq, in Libya, all countries around the Middle East. So countries understand that Israel is is a positive force to change, but not only from the security perspective. People thinking, okay, because we have common threats like Iran, and of course this is a huge factor. But when I've been to Egypt, and I saw a lot of people looking at Israel as a country who managed to succeed in the same conditions, the same conditions regarding agriculture, regarding the desert, desertification, and all these kind of issues, and also technology. So we see a lot of countries try to approach and see Israel as a positive force. And so now going back to your question about how it will affect. People warned Israel. We had two episodes in the past. What a year or 2 years? I was in Egypt when the U.S. decided to move the embassy to Jerusalem, and we were told that it's going to be. I was there. The Arab Street, like it is called, gonna be in a mess. Everyone will go to the streets, and this was not the case. And the same happened with the issue of the American acknowledgement of the Golan Heights situation. So I personally think this is not going to happen, because and all these people who warn Israel that bad things going to happen, they are our experience in the past or in the recent past showed that there are other factors and that will affect violence, and
okay. Then let's move our focus from the Middle East to Europe. You've mentioned, of course, the German foreign minister has been in Israel recently. There's been a lot of talk by different European countries about actions that they might take against the state of Israel should it choose to extend Israeli sovereignty to territories. Do you think there will be a reaction in Europe to a move by Israel?
So, as you stated, the foreign minister of Germany was in Israel, and he said that we respect, all our partners, and we are in dialogue with them, but we ask them to wait and see what is the plan, what's going to be decided, what's going to be the discussion, and then act. So we are not just living in a vacuum and without any contacts. We are in dialogue with all countries. And we believe that they will wait and they will see. And we hope, like the foreign minister said, we hope the Palestinians will get back to the table, and this will be a situation that will help to resume discussions.
One of the things that people in this country are very concerned about is BDS. So BDS has got a lot of traction in universities, but it's going beyond that now into banks and high streets and so on. Do you think that a unilateral move by the state of Israel may provide momentum for the BDS movement and begin to turn Israel into a pariah state in the same way as South Africa was under apartheid?
So we need to understand what BDS means and what are these people want. These people don't want Israel in any borders. They don't recognize Israel. They want Israel to disappear. And they want to boycott Israel, and so they are not against this or that policy of the Israeli government. So in this sense, I think they will not grow stronger, and we see only an increase in trade and only an increase in relations between Israel and the UK, between Israel and other European countries, because those countries value what Israel has to offer and what we have to offer in terms of trade, in terms of academic relations. So in these issues, I think I think Israel will strive.
I'll come back to it, but I wanted to touch on something first as to a concern that people have. So the new ambassador for Israel, when Mr. Regev moves on, Tzipi Hotovely, has criticized the Board of Deputies for stating in a manifesto in 2019 that it supported a Palestinian state. And in fact, what she said was, the idea of a Palestinian state is one that the state of Israel opposes. She says, it's important to say explicitly, a Palestinian state is a danger to the state of Israel. Now, it's been my impression for a long time that the state of Israel is committed to a two-state solution. Is this now the new position of the state of Israel? And if so, when did things change?
So, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that he doesn't believe in one state. And the issue of two states really depends on what are you talking about, because as I know from my experience in Egypt, and speaking and living in the Middle East, it's full of failed states. You know, we have states that are collapsing around us, and the question is what will be on the other side, whether it will be an agreement and a state based on reconciliation and not on education for peace. Because I think education, and this is from my experience, education, this is the most important thing. Education to peace, education of accepting Israel, because we see people value Israel, but still we see the educational system and still people are talking about evil things. Israel as described as the worst anti-Semitic tropes you can imagine in the Middle East. So I think people in Israel really wants to know what's going to be on the other side, whether and one state, as Prime Minister Netanyahu, is not really Israel policy. So it all depends on what's going to be achieved in negotiations.
I'm not exactly clear on what the position is. Is the position Israel supports two states, one state for the Palestinian and one for the Jews, or is it that we no longer support that position?
As I said, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that one state is not something that he wants to, that he believes in. And the question, and we want to have a negotiation and conversation with the Palestinians in order to reach a solution. And what will be the solution? What will be the Palestinian entity? Whether it will be a state? What's going to be the arrangement regarding security? This is a lot of issues that we need to sit and we need to discuss. It's not very plain to see.
Ohad, I understand that. I'm asking, what is the vision? What do we dream?
This is the vision.
No.
I believe.
Nobody sits and dreams of endless negotiations about barriers and this. What we dream of is living side by side or having the territory entirely to ourselves. What's the dream?
So the dream is, and I can tell you what's the dream of Israelis, because I live in Israel, and the dream of Israelis is to live in peace, not to be afraid of a missile firing at them, not to be afraid that on the other side they will have a failed state that, like what happened in 2005, and take the disengagement from Gaza, for example. We pulled out of Gaza. We dismantled all the settlements. We went back to the 67 border, and what we got on the other side, we got a coup d'etat, basically. And today we are marking, I think it's 10 years or 13, I don't remember, but today is the anniversary of Hamas taking over of Gaza and killing what it was 250 or even 400 Palestinians from the Palestinian Authority. And we got an extremist radical entity on the other side. So this is basically not what we want and not what the Israelis want. How you call it, how it will be achieved, I don't know. I don't know what will be in the future. But this is the vision of living side by side, preferably in good neighborhood with reconciliation and education for peace, but definitely not having missiles fire at Israel.
So then I come to ask you the question: do you think that extending Israeli sovereignty over parts of the West Bank will bring peace nearer or push it away further?
I hope bring peace nearer. And people asked us also about moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, whether this is what's the point of it, whether it will get peace nearer or further. I think acknowledging the truth and realities and Israel's position that Israel always stated that in any presence in the Jordan Valley and changes and land swaps, we are always in every negotiation that took place. If we're talking about Barak in 2000, on Olmert, the discussion was on land swaps, on what's that the border will not be the same as it was in 67. So when you're talking about land swaps, you need to acknowledge the reality in the Israeli position, and acknowledging the reality will get us further to solution. And denying the reality and only going to the international community and taking unilateral actions like declaring a state, this is something that will not get us closer.
So I've got one last question for you then. Obviously, there are differences of opinions about this. And in Anglo-Jewry, I can see it becoming potentially a really important and paralyzing fault line within our community. And it worries me greatly. So I'd like a piece of advice from you. What is your advice to an Anglo-Jewish Zionist, pro-Israel, who feels that Israel may be making a serious political mistake if it extends sovereignty to territories? How should he or she express that concern in a constructive way?
So, first of all, if he wants to influence, I strongly recommend to make Aliyah, to come to Israel, to vote in the elections, to be part, to join a civil society NGO, and to influence. And if he doesn't want to make Aliyahs, of course, to engage. We are here, and as an embassy, and this is my job basically, is to engage with people, to come, to have a candid discussion. We are basically, I see ourselves as family. We all have family. I meet people from the Jewish community every time I meet, and I just met you, we have family. So you have family in Israel, people have family, people have homes, and so we are family. So you can have a discussions, of course, with us, and I, of course, visit Israel and have discussions, see around, see what people are thinking. But I also recommend to respect also what people are thinking inside Israel. Like I said, people want to live in peace, and people are selecting their leaders, their Knesset, and the environment in Israel, in the Middle East, is not is not something easy. It's very challenging. And well, traveling around the Middle East, I've been to Egypt, also been to Jordan, to our embassy. It's not easy. It's a tough neighborhood, and in tough neighborhoods, you have to take tough decisions. But still, with this, kind of challenges, still Israel, you can be proud of Israel being a liberal democracy, having rule of law, having independent judiciary, freedom of speech. You have freedom to come to Israel and shout on anyone and talk whatever you want, basically, almost. So this, I think you should be proud of Israel.
Ohad, I really appreciate it. On a Sunday afternoon, to take the time to speak to us, it's really, really appreciated. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Ohad. It seems that the challenge that Ohad has is that without a government decision, which could change things on the ground, he is straddling between the position as it has been and the position that might be. And that is very uncomfortable. So we thank you so much, Ohad, for being on the show, but we're even more honored that the embassy is watching our North Slate TV. So thank you.
So now we go over to meet our youngest interviewee yet, Becca Grossman, who will be celebrating her bat mitzvah next year in January. She featured recently in the Sunday Times. So let's go over now and meet Becca Grossman. Okay, welcome Becca Grossman of Sunday Times fame. Well, welcome to Norris Lee TV.
Thanks.
Becca, you want to introduce yourself? Who are you?
I'm Becca Grossman. and I have two brothers, Adam and Jack, and my mum and dad, Andrew and David Grossman. We're members of Norris Lee.
Where do you go to school? Did you go back to school this week, or when did you start?
I go to Brooklands. In the past 2 weeks, we've been going to school, and I'm really happy to see all my friends.
Right, because you're in year 6, right?
Yeah.
So it was nice to go back.
Yeah, and it's really fun, and it's very normal. Like it didn't take long to feel normal.
Amazing. Well, what was it like before you went back to school? Were you doing classes on Zoom or on the phone?
We just got sent work, and we were just like left to it. So I mean, they couldn't really tell, and we weren't really in trouble if we didn't do it. I did all of it.
Did you do it? Be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, very good, because we're all watching this. Fantastic. Very good. Well done. I know it's hard. How did you find that, though, at home?
Yeah, I mean, I was on a WhatsApp call with my friend permanently when I was doing work, so...
That's nice. You help each other.
Yeah.
So you're glad to be back?
Very, yeah.
So you were interviewed by the Times, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that project that they did?
Yeah. So they asked for some children who wanted to speak with them, and I was one of them, and it was part of the online version, the video on Times, and we were just talking about how we felt about lockdown and what we were doing, and we got sent a lot of questions, and we had to try and answer them all, and they edited some and used some, and it was with a few other kids as well. That's
great. That was very courageous of you to go ahead and do that. And so how did you manage during lockdown?
Well, everyone always talks about how it's really boring and like there's nothing to do. But honestly, by the time I've got up and had breakfast, it's pretty much lunchtime. So I'm not very bored. And I actually I adopted some caterpillars. I didn't actually buy them. I just found 2 caterpillars. One of them I had for ages, and so I just let it go because I felt bad and it just wasn't turning into anything. But another one, which was bright green, I kept. It turned into a cocoon or a chrysalis, and then it turned into a moth.
Nice.
A moth and not a butterfly.
We named one of them George and the other one Georgina.
Oh, that's nice. In touch with nature, very good.
Yeah, and I've done lots of art. Like I've repainted a broken gnome of Peter Rabbit, which we've had for ages.
Nice.
And I made this little kind of den in the back of like behind my shed. And we got a trampoline.
Oh yeah, that keeps our kids entertained for hours. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hours and hours of fun. It's amazing.
I go on it every day.
Good exercise as well. Do your parents go on it with you?
Well, my mum's terrified of it. Like, she hates it. My dad doesn't mind it.
I'm not a fan.
He's got a bit of a bad back, so he doesn't really want to. My brother had a bad ankle. Now it's better, so he doesn't mind going on it. But and my other brother, he liked doing headers off of it.
Oh,
if you have a bit of fun, very good. That's lovely.
Yeah, it's amazing. You sounds like you were really creative during the lockdown, creating and painting. That's wonderful.
Where's your moth now? Has it flown away?
Oh yeah, that was ages ago. It's definitely dead now.
Oh.
Because they do not live for long, and I let it go like so many weeks ago.
Okay. And how? So you're 11 now, aren't you, Rebecca?
Yeah.
So what are you planning for your bat mitzvah? Or you do not want to think about it yet? When's your bat mitzvah?
It's on the 30th of January.
Okay, so we're hoping that it should be normal.
That's right.
Yeah, hopefully.
I hope so. I look forward to celebrating in shul. Will make you feel very special on your special day. And you'll deserve it.
I hope I will be able to do it, and because I'm going to do a Kavod Shabbat on Friday before my birthday.
Oh, nice.
So I hope that's done in time as well.
Yes, I know you're doing the shul bat mitzvah classes with our team here. Are you doing other learning as well for your bat mitzvah?
I mean, throughout lockdown, I've still been doing my cheder lessons. I do private ones with one of my best friends and another really good friend, and we we do them on Sundays, so we did it today. And I also do bat mitzvah lessons for Kabbalat Shabbat.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's very good. You seem very mature. I'm sure you'll do a good job. Look forward to hearing you speaking. I think that'll be interesting.
I hope so.
Yeah.
This is just a practice run. So yeah,
You
thank
seem
you.
very confident.
Yeah, I mean,
Is there anything you like that you wanted, like any message that you have, a positive message that you have from this whole lockdown as we're slowly easing out? You know, hopefully we're opening the shul soon in a couple of weeks. You already went back to school.
you know that story about the woman who lives in a very small house? It's a like nursery tale, and then she says it's a squash and a squeeze. So a wise man tells her to start bringing her animals in, and it gets really crowded. And when she takes them all out, it feels so big. And I feel like lockdown's a bit like that, because we're all taking everything for granted, and we all like think our houses are like not so bad. And then when we're all stuck together for like 12 weeks, it's like not nice. But when we come out of it, it just feels so much nicer, and we're a lot more grateful for everything we have.
Very nice, very positive.
That's a beautiful. Thank you so much. I think that hopefully everybody will be able to take that home with them from this unfortunate period that we're in. So thank you.
It's very mature of you at your age, 11-year-old girl, to think like that. It's quite fantastic. You're going to go places.
That's
Watch
right.
this space.
Another space to watch. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us on Norris Lee TV, Becca. And we look forward to seeing you in person very soon at the shul, and definitely, hopefully, very soon at celebrating your bat mitzvah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, thank you for joining. Have a nice evening.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rebecca. What a confident young girl. Very brave to come on our show, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea and David, for letting her come on. And you should have a lot of nachas from Jack, Adam, Becca, all of them. Well, thank you for joining us for yet another Norris Lee TV episode. Have a lovely evening, and it's goodbye from me.
And for me. See you next week.